yesterday to begin playing around with. Um, Also noticed that the price for L1 looks like it is way down this morning from the $3 price that I went to bed with. So I think we're around $1 in an L1 token. I don't know. It's been super interesting to take a look at, how all of our activity has been affecting the price. We started yesterday at about 30 cents per L1. Um, and yeah, it's been super interesting, meaning, there's definitely quite a few of you that are in the TUSD game this time around, which is adding an interesting component to it. I don't know, Will, are there any other sort of interesting trends or things that you've been noticing or wanted to kind of point out? Um, how's it going on your end? What have you been noticing?
Yeah, so we're still putting together the indexer to like really track everything in depth. I've been looking at sort of the standard indexer to see what everyone's been up to, and we do have a number of pretty impressive whales already. I think one of them is, a couple of them are actually in here. Um, so some people have really figured out the game and are doing really well. I think over 500 people, I think it was 512 last I checked, have hit the faucet bot. So participation is really good. Um, and yeah, once I have a query running right now, and once that finishes, I might have some more interesting stats. But otherwise, I think it's largely been successful in that I think a lot of people have found it easy to use. There's been a lot of participation, and we found some people who are really able to maximize their gains already. I think we have another liquidity drop coming from the faucet here in the next few hours, and so we'll see what that does to the price. But I think the price movement's pretty expected once people sort of saturate it and use up all their liquid TUSD. There's not a whole lot of buy side pressure coming anymore, so it'll be interesting to see what happens when the faucet refreshes.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it's basically 2 hours. I've been counting down the time. I started with very little cash during this playtest, so I'm trying to piece together as much as I can. Um, yeah, I mean, I think from my end, as a quick update, as many of you guys have kind of noticed overnight, our engineers are definitely on the back end looking into and patching a variety of issues you've reported so far. We got the timer back on the collect button. We fixed some chart UI glitches. We are aware of some weird decimal stuff and gas estimates happening in the swap pool that we're working to fix right now. And of course, just a lot of kind of friction around MetaMask connection, nonce, and transaction error issues. We are always super grateful for this feedback. And like anytime you encourage an issue, just like drop it in the Staking Playtest channel. We've been trying to be super good and responsive to make sure that everyone gets the most out of testing. Just as like a PSA for folks who are having issues with MetaMask. A lot of the issues that you're having is just because like especially if you like went on to check your playtest balance before the playtest kicked off, you may need to reset your nonce settings before attempting to put through a transaction. This is probably not something that's really going to happen during the live playtest. It's just kind of a result of us having to switch between, a mainnet network and then, the testnet and, various reset versions of the testnet. So I think the sort of big thing is like if you're having issues with MetaMask and switching from the LAMINA1 mainnet to the testnet that we're using for playtesting, we really do encourage you to, do something. It's kind of annoying, but like clear your cache, reset your nonce. I think Bernie said like, sometime users might even need to just like disconnect their wallet from the hub entirely, remove the network, close the page, reopen it, and connect from the start. We get that it's annoying, but like if you do those things, it's been really helping and like working for a lot of folks with stuff. And yeah, we're just gonna keep telling folks to do that. It sucks, but it should get you back on the right track if you are having issues with that. I don't know if there's anything more that you want to say about that, Will, but that's like one of our most common issues, but it's also like as annoying as it is, it's pretty easy to fix if you just go through that pain a little bit. um,
Yeah, we're trying to find a way to make it easier, but especially with the test networks that get reset a lot, unfortunately, that's sort of just the nature of it.
yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah, I mean, kind of like last time, this staking hangout is intended to be a little bit more casual than our kickoff. It's kind of an opportunity for you all to ask live questions. If you do have any like bugs or issues that you're experiencing, like feel free to drop them in the chat here. We'll try to work them through or out with you. And so, yeah, I mean, drop any questions you have. I guess I'll start out with some questions that I have for Will just to fill the time. But again, drop them in the chat here. I think the first thing I just want to chat about for this hangout in general is like, okay, yesterday morning was fun, right? So we had to completely restart the test over again after the liquidity pool went literally like absolutely wild. The token price got up to astronomical prices, which was kind of this like comedy of errors. It was ridiculous. But Will, do you want to take us behind the scenes of what happened and like why we had to restart the test and all the fun stuff in case folks missed it?
Yeah, so for those of you who are participating then, it was a very exciting half hour where we saw the price of the L1 token skyrocket to well over $1 billion a token. So that was really exciting, but unfortunately, ultimately broken. That was because when we deployed the smart contract for the liquidity pool, or actually when we provided liquidity to the liquidity pool, the values that were put in there were denominated in ether rather than whey. And so the liquidity in that pool was super, super tiny. So anytime you spent any money in the pool, it would just drive the price, a huge amount in any direction. It does sort of raise the point though, like when you use it, I think a lot of people ended up like spending all of their 2000 TUSD and getting like a fraction of an L1 token in return.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it does sort of highlight the need, and this exchange and liquidity swap pool won't necessarily be live in mainnet, but there will be dexes out there. But it does sort of highlight the importance of when you do make a trade in a dex or a liquidity pool to make sure you take a look at the price impact of your trade to
Yeah.
see if the trade is going to go the way you think it's going to go. So the people who did spend the money uh, and didn't get very much L1 in return, you should have paid more attention to that price impact and the trade price. But because a lot of people did end up losing their money, we decided it was probably better to just reset the network rather than refill the liquidity in the pool. So that's what we ended up doing ultimately. But it was a fun 30 minutes.
Yeah, I was definitely in that boat where I was just like, all right, I'm gonna sell all of my stuff and not even think about it just to make sure that this transaction goes through. And then I was like, oh no, I bought that at like the worst price you could
Yeah.
possibly do. Um, but I'm not the one competing for rewards right now, so it wasn't that big of a deal for me. But yeah, really appreciate you guys. I definitely was like asking you, like, you guys cool with us resetting? And everyone was like, yeah, why didn't you guys go ahead and reset it? So really appreciate it. Yeah, it was a super good educational moment, and this is why we test. Um, yeah. Um, I think, I mean, okay, so Will, you said that you're currently kind of doing finalizations of an indexer and that we'll have like a few more stats that we're going to be looking into once that's done. But like, what are some of the like big metrics or stats or like kind of numbers that that you're going to be looking at like the most closely during the second playtest? I know like the first one we did with community members was really small, so we didn't get like a super accurate economic model. Obviously, this one's still pretty small, right? It's not like going to be anywhere near like the amount of people who are probably going to actually get involved in the network. But like, what are the things you're looking at for this playtest specifically? Like, what are you looking to learn?
Yeah, so similar to the last one, we did sort of elect a number of top testers to be quote unquote rewards farmers. And those are people who are basically acting like some of the actors we've had in our network who've been farming like the bonus rewards faucet or the airdrop rewards. And so they've gotten maybe a little bit more, sometimes a lot more liquid tokens, liquid L1 tokens, and LO1 tokens than most community members. And so one thing we want to do is just make sure that having that advantage in the mainnet doesn't cause any issues with the overall macroeconomics, or even that it isn't such an unfair advantage that it sort of disillusions other people from participating. So that's one thing that we definitely are going to take a close look at, how those farmers do compared to other people who were actively participating. Um, and I think, like, other than that, it's just to make sure that we're feeling pretty good with how all of these various parameters are working, what early liquidity should look like. I think there's maybe going to be a change up in the next quarter where we increase the staking multiplier a little bit. So we'll play around with that, see how that affects some things. But otherwise, yeah, I think it won't be until we see the final data that we'll know maybe exactly what we're looking for, other than to just confirm the overall economic model generally, and then to make sure that the farmers are not getting an undue advantage.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to ask if there's like any sort of tweaks that you're planning to make either like today or over the weekend. Like I guess you mentioned to that staking modifier. Like I know we talked last time about like, a special role of like an investor that might dump a bunch of tokens at the 9 month mark. Is there anything that folks should keep an eye out for, or that we have planned on that kind of end?
Yeah, so we definitely are probably going to model some investor activity or some team activity later on in the test. So as you
Mm-hmm.
know, investors currently have a 9 month lockup, and the team has a 12 month lockup. And so we'll probably dump some liquidity into the market just to see what happens at those points. And like I said, the multiplier is something we'll probably play around a little bit with. I want to get some current data. It looks like my script just finished. So I'm going to take a look at that data, see what things are looking like, and I might adjust the multiplier. I was thinking about increasing either liquidity depth or increasing the TUSD drip amount. But I think I'm going to hold off on doing that just yet and see how the next quarter goes with the same injection of capital. Um, Other than that, I don't think there's any major changes coming. Specifically in this next quarter, I think a lot of things will be the same. The only thing that might change is going to be um, the staking multiplier.
Nice. Is that staking multiplier something that can be adjusted by governance? Jackal Girl asks.
Staking multiplier could be adjusted by governance at some point, certainly. I mean, it currently is. It's just maybe not the governance you have in mind. Staking multiplier will be controlled by OMA, the Open Metaverse Monetary Authority, which is going to be like a community elected group of individuals, and they'll vote on whether to change it and how much to change it. Um, there certainly could be a way to sort of make that a more direct vote um, further down the line once we flesh out all the specifics around the vote token. But currently, it's envisioned to be controlled by that council.
Mm-hmm. Okay. NEQ asks, I want to get this straight. Given that the initial test L1 that like participants are getting is equivalent to the L1 mainnet balance, isn't that giving like some person like a good standing compared to others? Like we're giving certain folks like a pretty big advantage. Asking sort of like considering that the activity is to incentivize and obviously means like only a few people go home with incentive. Like, can we talk about like, I guess kind of like why we wanted to model like this test around people's mainnet L1 balances and kind of talk a little bit about those advantages a little bit?
Yeah, it's a really good question and a great concern.
Yeah.
If you take a look at the scoring document, I think we released it, right?
Yeah, we did. I can drop that in the chat here.
Yeah, the goal here is to not track absolute gains, but to track relative gains compared to starting values. And so that's why the indexer is taking a while to build out. It is sort of complex to track all that, but it should mitigate the advantage that some of these individuals have, given that they, maybe received a lot more L1 if they were a rewards farmer, or a lot more LO1 if they were, one of the top active community members. The main goal of the whole playtest was really to get a pseudo accurate, um, playthrough of the actual economics of the platform, and to sort of see how certain actors, given different amounts of LO1 and L1, might behave in the market. And so that's why it made sense for us to just actually emulate those amounts directly within the playtest. So like I said, we've tried to the best of our ability to mitigate any advantage having that much, having more LO1 or L1 at the beginning of the test would give you, based on the scoring references that we put in that document. But it is important for us to get, like I said, a pseudo accurate representation of what the economy is going to look like in the first year.
Yeah, for sure. I think it was funny, like the group's idea. I think Killen was the one who brought this up because we were kind of talking about it. First, it was just ratio-based rewards, right? And we're like, great, that'll be a great way to ensure that. And then, of course, and we're like, and we'll just penalize anyone that, like, you know, sends money between accounts because, like, you can kind of mess with the ratio doing that. And then, of course, there's the idea that, like, you could totally disqualify or nerf folks if you just send them like a quick transaction. And I
Right.
will say, Killen, we had a whole long conversation that afternoon being like, shoot, like, how are we gonna combat this? Which is like kind of where this tracking staking performance document came out from. So I guess, like, do we want to maybe talk about revisiting that? Like, so I ended up like softening the language in the guide that just was kind of like, if there is like super clear like rewards running, like rewards farming stuff, like you'll get disqualified. But like, what is, if any, is there any sort of like disqualifying activity folks should be aware of when working towards these prizes? Like, I know our plan is to just kind of like manually look through folks' activities to make sure that, like, these gains were gotten legitimately, but I wanted to follow up on that a little bit because I know we changed it.
Yeah, so again, that doc should describe a way for us to calculate a score that automatically removes increases in balance based
Mm-hmm.
on what we call external influences. So we break up your balance into internal and external. Internal is sort of what we consider like valid.
Yeah.
And that means like the balance was, or the increase in wealth was gained from either receiving tokens from an approved source, like the wallet we use to airdrop LO1 and L1, or from spending internal tokens in the swap pool. So like if I spend internal L1 in the swap pool, I'll get internal TUSD back, and vice versa. From staking internal L1 and then receiving RL1, that RL1 will be considered internal. Anything that has an external influence, so that's like tokens that someone else sent you, or if you're spamming the rewards faucet and consolidating it into a single wallet, all of that will be labeled as external and tracked via the indexer. And so you'll end up with two scores for each balance that we're tracking, and it does list all the balances we're tracking in the document as well. The internal balance is one that we consider sort of valid and fair, and the external one is ones that we sort of consider you as sort of gaining unfairly.
Mm-hmm.
For the three main prize pools, we're only going to look at internal balances. For that fourth free-for-all prize pool, we'll look at internal and external. So if you are sort of breaking the rules, we're not going to, unless we can, we're probably, hopefully there's no need to manually review the top three winners in the three main prize pools, but we will
Mm-hmm.
look through them. And if it does look like something went wrong in that scoring, and someone like mistakenly won when they were clearly doing something that wasn't fair, then we will skip them. But anyone is able to win that fourth free for all pool. So if you are sort of scamming the system or farming or whatever it is you're doing, feel free to do it, and you can win one of the top 3 spots in the free for all pool.
There we go. SY Yasunu asks, why is there not an option of ending staking if like a long time was chosen first and then later the staker decided to end staking? Like, why aren't we giving people a choice to unstake their stuff?
Yeah, that's like super. It's a bit of a philosophical question. I mean, the whole point of staking is generally in these systems is to sort of make a representation, a confidence representation in the network in exchange for a reward. And so, if we give you a reward based on you saying, like, I'm feeling very confident about the network, I'm going to lock these tokens up for 10 years, and we give you a very high reward for that 10 years, then it doesn't make a lot of sense for you to be able to back out of that when you've already been receiving rewards. It's not really a lockup if you can just end it arbitrarily early. So that's kind of why it's supposed to be a sort of confidence metric for you in the network, and as a result, you get rewards based on how long you stake. So like, yeah, if we're giving you incentives based on that length of time, then it doesn't make sense for you to be able to arbitrarily limit it or leave it early. This is something that's super, super common in the space.
Yeah.
And we're not the only ones that do this. This is, I think, almost unilaterally done in all staking systems.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, our staking system is definitely a little, it's interesting. Obviously, it incentivizes like long-term holding and is definitely a little weird compared to some, but that
Yeah,
aspect of it is pretty common.
I'll say one other thing. I mean, there are staking systems out there that sort of just let you stake. So you don't even set a period. You're just like, hey, I just want to stake 100 tokens. And then, like, those tokens will just gain rewards until you decide to remove them.
Mhm.
And that is a valid way to go. You can do that in ours. You could just stake it for one day and you can keep those tokens in there indefinitely until you're ready to remove them. And you'll keep earning rewards on them until you remove them. What staking them for a long period of time does, though, is it multiplies the power of your stake. And that creates some interesting dynamics that we thought were important because, like, in a lot of these systems, you end up, with, either large initial investors or team members, or, early purchasers who end up with a ton of tokens. And then, especially when it comes time to govern based on the amount of tokens that you're willing to vote with, it becomes very hard for you as someone with maybe a nominal amount of tokens to really compete with the whales and have your voice heard. So
Yeah.
one thing that having that multiplier does is give you an option. I think it's called a conviction multiplier in a lot of these platforms, where, like, if you want to make a difference and you only have a little bit of tokens, then you can multiply and increase the power of your vote by essentially locking them up for a long period of time, what they call the conviction uh, multiplier. And that allows you, even with a little bit of tokens, to have an impactful vote. So that, I
Mhm.
think, is something that'll be reflected here. Right now, that's maybe not as clear because this is purely economic. But the vote token will be earned at the same rate as the stake token when it's released. So
Mm.
the same thing will happen in our network as well, where if you stake for 10 years, then yes, your staking power is multiplied by 3,650, but also your voting power is multiplied by 3,650. So it can be a very powerful tool if you want to use it. But you're right, like, if you foresee the need or the desire to want to unstake early, like, you definitely shouldn't be staking for 10 years. You should, choose the maximum amount of stake that you're comfortable having those tokens locked up for.
Yeah, for sure. And the plan for adding those kind of like vote tokens and that voting functionality, that's still planned for rolling out like kind of after the initial launch of staking, right?
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah, that'll probably be 1 to 2 months, maybe closer to 2 months after initial staking is released.
Awesome. Yeah, I think I'm definitely excited to do that. I mean, I'm sure we'll probably do a couple more kind of tests around that once we add that factor into the equation as well. Which I'm excited for. Um let's see guys. Any more questions? That's kind of again, this was supposed to be kind of more of an open Q&A. All right, we got Lily. Oh yeah, Lily asked she's reposting it. When playtest is over, can we get an auto collect and auto restake button implemented into the governance chat? This was a
Can we
big
get a
debate
what?
the
An
last
auto
time
restake?
around. Yeah.
It's a really good idea. I'm nervous about doing it, specifically because of the last question. People might get a little ambitious early on and decide to keep indefinitely restaking their tokens for the maximum period of time and then forget about it and then come back and they've got, a fortune of tokens that are now locked up for decades. It is something we could do. I think like we would probably maybe make it a separate tool if we do release something like that and not bake it directly into the hub
Mm,
because it does have sort of significant ramifications on like your liquidity and your ability to access your tokens. Um, I think like we would maybe want to make sure that you're absolutely sure that's something you want to do and you know what you're doing before before you go ahead and set that. Um, but yeah, we heard you the last time. It is something we've talked about doing. We may do it directly within the hub. If not, there will certainly be an external tool to do it for you, whether it's something we officially release or someone else just builds a quick bot for you to do it. But yeah, we'll definitely keep it in mind.
we've definitely got some botters and bot developers in the community that are running them right now. I'm definitely curious to see the data on how they're working, honestly. For sure. Edo289 actually asked, kind of related to that, is there an overview where we can like see how other participants are doing?
Yeah,
I
that's
know,
what I'm working on right now. Yeah,
yeah,
so
you
the
were talking
indexer
about a
that
leaderboard. We've gotten a number
yeah,
of
the
calls
indexer
about.
that's doing the scoring is also what's going to power the leaderboard. If you've looked at that document, the tracking of scores is relatively complex. I have to dig through every transaction as it goes onto
Yeah.
the chain. And then I have to identify like what type of transaction it is, whether it has internal, external influences, update balances, all that fun stuff. So it's a fairly complex indexer. I'll probably be working on it all weekend. Once it's done, especially if I can get at least an initial version of it done earlier, then I'll launch a super simple leaderboard. It won't be very fancy. It'll just be a table of everyone's balances. Unfortunately, I don't have that at the moment. I mean, technically, I have one that I'm running manually, so we could just release like a quick CSV if that's interesting. But it also won't break out internal versus external influences. So you won't be able to tell, you won't be able to differentiate between people who are sort of cheating versus playing the game fairly just yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely like I've already been brainstorming and pulling together designs and stuff for like I kind of want to do like especially for this one with so many more participants than the last one, like kind of a full kind of wrap up report that just kind of shows like, graphs of like what happened to the price like versus what happened to staking. So we should definitely work together on that because I feel like I want to just do that for myself, do some fun data viz for everyone and kind of
Totally.
show them that. Um, don't know anything about building daemons in the metaverse. Innocent smile. Love that. Yeah, I mean, I'm actually kind of surprised that like y'all didn't start up like a bot market before this playtest, but it seems like you guys are all in on just using those bots to win these prizes, which is also very fair. um, I definitely wish I had a bot. I know Toon has been asking for bot help as well in the top testers chat pretty intensely. Let's see. Edu is back. Will you be able to gather valuable data from this test, even despite the fact that there are not yet thousands of testers?
I think so. I mean, the hundreds we've had so far is honestly more than I was expecting for a test like this. It's a fairly effort-packed thing to participate in, so I think this is I'm really pleased with the participation we've had so far, and the data is absolutely going to be valuable. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I guess anything else, we were gonna kind of end this at 11:15. So anything else on your end, Will, that you wanted to tease to the community or let us know about, or should we get you back to working on that indexer tool?
Yeah, nothing specifically. Like I said, once I take a look at some of these values, I might change up the multiplier. We have a little bit more liquidity coming here in about an hour and a half. But otherwise, hope you're having fun with it. And yeah, I'm hoping to get you guys some scores so you can see how you're doing here maybe over the weekend.
Awesome. Yeah. Great. So thank you guys all. As as I said at the top of the hour, we're going to be continuing the playtests through the weekend and early next week. Going to be ending on Tuesday at 12:30 Pacific. After that, yeah, we'll announce our winners, share a report with you on what we've learned. And I guess again, no secret code for this Hangout or AMA. The LAMINA1 bot on Telegram has been very buggy lately. Thank you all for the reports. And basically, I'm not going to be releasing any more quests on it until our bot engineers have some time to make those fixes and all of that stuff. And yeah, I will be here all weekend to continue supporting folks through playtesting. If you have any issues, questions, any of that, definitely ping us. We've got a live thread of bugs and errors that I'm logging for the engineering team. I'm trying to answer as many questions as I can without bugging them. So yeah, thank you all so much. And yeah, I mean, I think there's a bunch of CyberLam auctions going on alongside the playtest that our friend Cryptoversal is doing. So if you're in the NFT game for Lamina1 mainnet, I'll give you a plug. I've been watching all these lambs and we love to see all the early kind of creator activity and projects and collections launching. So definitely get in on that if you can. All right, guys. We will catch up with you in a little bit. Happy playtesting and see you guys all in the feeds. Bye, guys.
Hi, everyone.